In 2025, the story was simple: rate cuts, and Canadians got 10 of them. The Bank of Canada delivered relief, pushing borrowing costs down and confidence up. But the party is over. Next week's December rate decision sets the stage for a 2026 where the consensus is dead. Forget easy rate cuts. We are now facing a terrifying spread of wild forecasts in 2026. Painful holds, long shot cuts, and yes, even the threat of rate hikes. Stick around because we're going to be breaking down these wild forecasts and what this chaos means for your mortgage. Hi, my name is Zen. If you enjoy my data-driven and number-crunching real estate updates, be sure to like and subscribe. The Bank of Canada is expecting to hold the rate right now in December. All data points to this. And the reason is because we have a lot of information such as GDP that supports the fact that we no longer need any more rate cuts. So Bank of Canada is going with the let's wait and see approach and see what the next set of data looks like. And as we roll into 2026, we're entering a totally drastically different kind of economic environment where compared to 2025, rate cuts came very easy. So in 2025, we got 10 rate cuts and it was very, very easy and it was kind of expected. But now as we head into 2026, the stage is set. It's totally different. It's completely flipped because the economy doesn't need the rate cuts anymore. We still do have the looming trade war, but now the overnight rate that the Bank of Canada controls is within the 1% to 3% band. So they're going to wait and see. And even though the December announcement looks like it's going to be a rate hold, 2026 is shaping to be a wild ride. So make sure to tune into the rest of the video to understand what's actually happening. But before we get there, let's talk about what happened in 2025 just to see how we got to where we are right now. You can see over here, the last announcement was October 29. So this was the last announcement and it brought us to 2.25. So we started as high as 5 and we've had basically a lot of rate cuts going down to where we are right now. And right now, Bank of Canada is going to hold. The thing that's important to understand why everyone's following the Bank of Canada's interest rate announcement really is that we've been told to believe, or we've been trained to believe in the last, call it 5 to 10 years, that Bank of Canada rate cuts means real estate prices up or sales activity increases. But you can see it's clearly not the case because since December of 2024, so with that 1 year ban over here, we've had rate cuts, quite a lot of them too. But the sentiment is bad. The confidence is bad. People's belief is bad. People don't think that the real estate market has bottomed yet. And also people are afraid of losing their jobs, which has resulted in the historically worst sales year we've had since the 90s. Our population has doubled and we'll probably end the year around 60,000 sales, where normally would be up to 90 or maybe even 100,000 in the peak of the market. So to think that the Bank of Canada announcement is going to move the needle in the market is actually a false pretense. What I will say though is if we get maybe 1 or 2 more drops and the economy is better, it'll set a new floor. But if we start seeing rate holds and if we start seeing rate hikes even, that's going to change the sentiment and it's going to spook a lot of the buyers and sellers in the market right now. And this is why I've been saying there's likely going to be continued weakness in 2026 because of the economic reasons. Hey, it's me interrupting myself. Ready to make a move? Just one free call, no hassle, but decades of experience to work for you. So currently, all the economists at the big banks have put out some kind of forecast about where they think the Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate is. So right now we are over here, 2.25. And you can see a majority of the banks, TD, RBC, and CIBC, believe that at the end of 2026, the rates are going to be exactly flat. They're exactly going to be where they are right now. So neither stimulative or non-stimulative for the real estate market and the economy in a whole. You also see that BMO and National Bank are calling for an additional 1 rate cut to bring us down to the 2%. And whether we get that 125 basis point rate cut isn't really going to move the real estate needle. That's why I think the sentiment in regards to real estate right now isn't driven by the Bank of Canada's announcements because we've had so many rate cuts and the market is so bad. It's driven by a lot of things. But what I will say is that if Scotia is correct and we're going to get a 50 basis point rate hike because inflation is coming back, then that is really going to scare the bejesus out of a lot of people. So I would say there is not much upside with the real estate market if we were going to even get like that 125 basis point rate cut. But there's plenty of downside if Scotia is right and we get a 50 basis point rate hike. I will caveat, Scotia was the only bank that called for the massive rate hiking cycle that we saw in 2022. So you got to give credit where credit is due. But now I'm going to show you some of the data I'm watching and to show you what signals I'm following, which ultimately still leads to a very inconclusive decision on where rates are going to be. So the first one is we're going to talk about inflation. And you can see this is inflation going all the way back to 2000s. And this yellow band I highlighted is that comfort range that Bank of Canada likes to see, which is somewhere between 1 and 3%. And you can see we're smack dab right in the middle. So this data shows that it should neither be a rate cut or a rate hike. And this is why I have in the top right corner, looking at the inflation data, Bank of Canada should be holding going forward. The second one that also is going to talk about a hold is our GDP growth, so gross domestic product. Now, this is on a quarterly basis, and the last time we got a negative GDP print was in Q2 of this year, which could have set the stage for a technical recession, which is 2 negative quarterly growth. But the last one came out a few weeks ago and we're actually positive. So we kind of skipped the technical recession. Granted, I don't really believe these numbers, but it's showing that the economy is weak and we're not getting much growth, but it is not negative. So it's not like it's crumbling. So this would actually call for a hold. And you can see over here, the forecast for the GDP right now is all positive going all the way to the end of 2026. But what I will say is that no proper economist is going to say, hey, we're going to go into a recession because it's going to scare the heebie-jeebies out of people. So it's not the right thing to say. So if we go into a recession, it's always going to be looking backwards. We're like, oh, we're in a recession. But if you've been following any of the economic stuff that's happening in Canada, you'll know that we have really, really weak GDP per capita, so per person growth. So that's why if you're going to the grocery store and you feel things are expensive and you feel like you're getting behind in life, it's because of that reason. The GDP per capita growth has been stagnant, if not negative, compared to all our kind of Western world counterparts. Then this is where things get scary. Now we're going to be talking about what I'm looking at that can cause a rate hike. And I would suspect Scotia is looking at this data. So this is the Canada core inflation. And all core inflation basically is it's inflation, but you strip out the volatile things, which is energy and food. I'll bet I don't think it's the best measurement, but in Bank of Canada's kind of announcement, they do look at core inflation. And what you can see here is that the trend line is peaking up and they're getting close to that 3% band. And this is because generally speaking, when you take out food and energy, which is volatile, it means that the things that we're spending our money on are getting more expensive, which means that they need to tame inflation, which means that they need to hike interest rates. So this is a scary thing for anyone who owns real estate or has a mortgage renewal coming. It means that if Bank of Canada is solely watching this, we should be expecting hikes. And I saved the best for last if you own real estate, which is a cut. If Bank of Canada is going to cut, they will be watching the unemployment rate. You can see right now we are spiking. And when unemployment rate isn't great, it means that they need to stimulate the economy, cut the rates so that businesses will hire again. Now, there's a lot of noise in this data because if you look at Toronto is already kind of at 9 point something right now. And a lot of the hiring that's being done right now is done by the government. And if Carney is going to be cutting a lot of government jobs, we should be expecting unemployment rate to be increasing quite a lot. So if Bank of Canada is watching this data set, they're going to do a cut. So let me summarize for you. We have two signals that I'm watching for, which is the inflation and also the GDP that calls for a rate hold, and we keep it at 2.25. But if we're to follow the core inflation, really we should be hiking. But if we follow the unemployment rate where the economy is weak, we should be cutting right now to stimulate the economy to create more jobs. So this is why I was saying there's a lot of signals that are mixed up. And this is why Bank of Canada is going to hold the rate in December and just see what the data presents us. Because there's a lot of things that could affect the Canadian economy that will dictate the Bank of Canada's decision in 2026. And we have to remember, interest rates take 12 to 18 months to kind of trickle into the economy. And the higher interest rates have already caused the damage in the real estate market. And this is why a lot of people are selling the property, but unfortunately they're selling it underwater. And if you want to understand more about that, make sure to check out the video that's on the screen. I'll catch you in that one. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya.